Hi there! Today I'm going to be comparing two different sets of alcohol-based markers. One is the $6 Art Skill permanent marker set that I got from Walmart, and the other is a $17 set of Spectrum Noir Illustrator markers that I purchased from Amazon. The Art Skill set comes with 8 markers, dual-tipped, with a fine tip and a chisel nib, and it comes with the colors red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, brown, and black. The Spectrum Noir Illustrator marker basic set has 6 markers, also dual tipped but with the ever so sought after brush nib, also a fine tip on the other side. It comes with the colors poppy, nectarine, canary, emerald, true blue, and purple. Here are my previous swatches from the Spectrum Noir set, and now I'll do a little swatch of the Art Skills set. I noticed in the side-by-side that the Art Skills markers are more saturated. The blue and purple especially seem to be much darker, and I anticipate this to mean that it will be harder to build up these colors. Can I just say that these markers both look photoshopped in this picture, just because it seems like the Art Skills markers are so much brighter and crisp and clear, but then on the other side the Spectrum Noir markers are kind of dull. Oh, is that just me? Do you guys see that? So putting these markers side by side, they're both the same length, and they're also both the same weight. I think the Art Skills markers just feel a little bit cheaper because the plastic is like a smooth, slick, glossy plastic, whereas the Spectrum Noir markers are more of a matte finish. The logo of the Spectrum Noir markers is shiny, but not the rest of the marker, whereas the Art Skill marker has a sheen across the whole thing. I'm actually surprised that they weigh the same. For some reason, I thought that the Spectrum Noir marker would be a little bit heavier, but no, same weight. Here are the fine point nibs for each marker, and the brush nib for the Spectrum Noir and the chisel nib for the Art Skills. The Art Skills markers actually have a gray line on the fine tip part of the marker, so it's much easier to quickly pick up the marker and know which end you're opening. The Spectrum Noir markers don't have any other than just the little symbol on the marker itself. The Art Skills markers have a square barrel and lid, and so the lid can actually fit on 4 different ways. Very nice and convenient. Whereas the Spectrum Noir markers are a hexagon barrel and the lid only fits on 2 ways. Not as convenient. I'm always worried that I'm going to smash the brush nib into the lid when I'm trying to close it. Something I don't have any footage of here, but I figured that all marker and pen lovers would like to know, the Spectrum Noir lids do not fit on the back of the markers, but the Art Skills markers do. Now let's compare them in a drawing. This was just a little brainstorming page I was working on. Ignore this lady, she's fine. So I tried using a Q-tip dipped in alcohol because I don't actually have a colorless blender, and I was trying to see if I could get any variation in the tone of the colors. Here's some swatches of the pure color, and then with 1 swipe of alcohol, 2 swipes, and then 3 swipes. But I think I actually did it wrong because I put the alcohol down first and then put the marker on top of it, and I'm realizing now that I probably should have put the alcohol on top of the marker swab, but oh well. I didn't use this technique anyway just because I wasn't comfortable enough with it and I wanted to do a little bit more practicing, but now that I know I probably did it backwards, I might try that next time. So I started with the Spectrum Noir markers, and I'm not sure why I used the fine point. My original thought was that I was going to use the best feature of each marker to its advantage, but I do realize this in just a minute, and I switched to the brush nib, which is obviously one of these markers' best features. If you notice on the little orange section, the marker didn't blend completely in with itself. Maybe these markers dry a little bit quicker, but that happened even using the brush nib. And the Art Skill markers actually didn't have that problem even though they don't have a brush nib. I was able to blend edges in and you couldn't even see a seam like you can with this one. Since the Spectrum Noir set didn't have a black, I'm just using the combination of all the colors to achieve a black. Long lines require more focus, sorry. I knew I wanted to do the wings in green, but I still wanted a dark liner across the top of the eye, so again, I'm using all the colors to achieve that. Now I'm just building up colors with more layers. I did way more layers than I actually show. I forgot to point out when I finally started using the brush nib, so I'll just say it now. I'm using the brush nib. Yay me! I also forgot to mention that the paper I'm using is the Strathmore Bristol board. It's very smooth, it has absolutely no texture, and the Spectrum Noir had no bleeding or feathering where it kind of sprouts out, where you can see it like gets fuzzy on the edges. There was none of that with these markers. but not so much for the art skills set, as you'll see here pretty soon. So on every color, I used its complementary color on the edges to kind of build up a shadow, and then I go back over it with the original color to try to blend it out and make it a little bit less noticeable. So I just added a little bit of shading to the eyeball because I just couldn't help myself. So I kind of messed up this eyebrow going through here. I didn't really have a plan for it, and it definitely shows. Yes, I forgot the green. Yes, I'm sorry. I wanted those wings to be a little bit darker, so I added red just to the bottom part of the green. And I think it definitely helped. I added a little bit of pencil shading off camera, and now we'll move over to the art skill side. Right off the bat, lots of feathering, bleeding, whatever you call it, where it gets fuzzy around the edges. Now, technically this wouldn't be a problem as long as you account for it as you're coloring. So, you know, don't draw right up against your line, kind of give a little bit of allowance so that the feathering can move to the line. And I think it could actually create really fun textures if you know how to work with it the right way. So this set did come with a black, so I went ahead and used that to my advantage. But is it really an advantage? It might be for convenience, but you tell me at the end which one you like more, the black created with multiple colors or the black created with the single marker. I forgot that it's a good idea with markers to put paper underneath the paper you're drawing on in case there's bleeding, but actually neither one of these markers bled completely through. You can see the markers on the back side of the paper, but nothing got on my desk or the paper underneath it, so that's pretty good. Using the fine tips, the colors don't blend as nicely, obviously, as the brush tip does. You can see it best on the orange where I used the blue to try and shade it. I think I probably should have used red. So doing this part, I actually forgot that I had black and I started using the same technique of mixing all the colors, but I do go over it with the black eventually, once I remember. Added a little bit of pencil shading, and there we go. I did try to go over the right eyebrow, blending it out as best as I could. Spectrum Noir definitely has them beat on the blending side, but it could just be user error. These markers might actually blend really nicely, and I'm just too much of a noob to know. Both of these look incredibly similar. The blues and the purples are still darker on the art skill markers, like I said, so it was harder to build up that color. You can definitely see a better variation in the blue on the Spectrum Noir side. Like I said, I did go over on the right eye black on the pupil and the crease, but it actually still looks darker on the left hand side. Tell me what you think. Which one do you like better? I think I personally like the Spectrum Noir side where it's a mixture of the colors. It gives it a little bit more life, I think. Now that's not to say that you couldn't do that same thing with the art skills markers, just don't use the black, just use the mixture of the colors like I did with the other one, and I'm sure you'd get just as nice of a result. Just wanted to point out here that I did get a little bit more ink on the barrels of the Spectrum Noir Illustrator markers. There's still a little bit on the art skills markers too, but I think it was worse on the Spectrum Noir markers because the cap is so tricky to get on. I ended up getting it all over the barrel. So really quickly, a rundown of the pros I have for the Spectrum Noir markers. Has a brush tip, they're easily buildable colors, easy blending. You can actually purchase more color sets with this brand of markers. The cons would be there's only 6 colors for $17. There's no black or brown for convenience, and the shape of the marker itself makes it a little bit more tricky to get the lids on, but I don't really think that's a deal breaker. It's just a little annoying. What I have written down as pros for the art skill marker set, there's 8 markers for only $6. It comes with a brown and a black, just for convenience. The lids fit on the back of the marker and easily on and off the marker itself. And I also like that it has that little gray strip around the marker, so it makes it easy to find the fine point really quickly at a glance. The cons for these markers, I think there's no brush tip, so blending is a little bit trickier, but it's not impossible. And these are actually the only set of alcohol-based markers by this brand I could find. I just saw these at Walmart, so I picked them up, but I did go online and search for Art Skills alcohol-based markers, and they do have other kinds of markers, but this was the only set of alcohol-based permanent markers, so these are the only colors I think they have available at the moment. Just like my video where I compared a generic digital stylus versus the Apple Pencil for the iPad Pro, I wanted to go into it not knowing a whole lot about these markers, just like with the styluses. I was very much new at this, very much a beginner, and I wanted a non-biased comparison. I've watched plenty of art videos to know that the brush tip is, the most sought after by artists because it makes things a lot easier to blend, but I still wanted to give these Art Skills markers a fair chance because they're $6 for 8 markers, and really, I think they actually did really well. So in conclusion, both of these sets are great in their own ways. The Spectrum Noir are not outrageously priced like Copic markers, and I would consider them affordable. The Art Skills markers are cheap, but I think as by a comparison, they are a fair competitor, especially for a beginner like me, just starting out with markers, trying to find out if I like them or not, which I do. So yeah, sure, if you have that money to get the Spectrum Noir set, go for it if that's the one that you want. But if you're not sure that you still want to spend that much money on something that you're not sure you're gonna like, I would say that these Art Skills markers are definitely a good purchase. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it helped you in some way. If you enjoyed this, please don't forget to click that like button and also consider subscribing to my channel if you want to see more videos from me in the future. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave "stay sweet" in the comments. Alright, bye guys!